just want to first thank our sponsors. Obviously, Evoqua is one of our sponsors, so we're thrilled that they're hosting today. And I'd love to introduce Julia Saints, who was actually an intern with Evoqua last year and participated in the Passport program when we launched it. So it's awesome to now have her back as a staff member who's working full-time as a sustainability program coordinator and helping them lead a new major initiative. So Julia, thanks so much, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Allison. It's great to be here and talking about such an exciting topic as sustainability. So again, thank you. And I did participate in the Passport program last year, which was a little bit different since we didn't have COVID around. So we got to be a bit more in person. But again, it's great to have you all here and to have so many folks participating and joining us at Evoqua to talk about such a great topic as sustainability and water. So again, thank you all for joining. If you have any questions that come up, please post them in the chat. And again, please continue to introduce yourselves in the chat, and especially folks from Evoqua. If we have our interns and folks in the leadership development program, please continue to introduce yourself in the chat. That'd be very helpful. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce the folks from the Evoqua team who are on the call today. So first up, we have our president and CEO, Ron Keating, who will be giving an overview of Evoqua. And then next we have our executive vice president and chief human resources officer, Anthony Webster, who will share what it's like to work with us. Then our executive vice president and chief growth officer, Snehal Desai, and myself are going to have a conversation on sustainability in the water space. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our CEO, Ron Keating, to kick us off.
Thanks, Julia, and thanks, Allison. We actually, really appreciate the Passport program. We have enjoyed participating in it. I think it was terrific for us last year. In fact, we got to host, I believe, this meeting in our lifestyle center at our corporate headquarters at K&L Gates Center. And so it's a little different talking to all of you via Zoom chat, but at least we can still kind of see each other and see what's going on. And it's lovely to be able to, talk to you about water, talk to you about sustainability and what goes on in the space that we're in. And frankly, to be able to introduce you to Evoqua. It's from my standpoint, and you'll hear more from Snehal and Anthony, the things that we do are very important. And I would say that it is very impactful. We absolutely love being in Pittsburgh. We love having a global company, but it's only appropriate that a company that's focused on water surrounded by 3 rivers. So having our headquarters in Pittsburgh has been very ideal for us and specifically terrific since we've moved and we've been able to grow. So if you start with Evoqua, it really starts with what we do as a business, our core values, what we focus on. First of all, when we created the company, we carved out of a corporate conglomerate in 2014 and created Evoqua as a standalone water treatment company that's focused on water treatment around the world and sustainability. But we got together and as a leadership team and then as an organization, we defined our purpose. It's very simple: transforming water, enriching life. Our vision: what do you want to be 10 years from now? The world's first choice in water solutions. So call out today what you want to be in 10 years, and we are very quickly making our path to being the world's first choice in water solutions. And then we define our values, and the values are: what do we focus on every single day? Number 1, we operate with integrity. We do what's right. Number 2, we perform. We deliver on our promises. Number 3, we have customers that are the reason we come in and turn the lights on and off every day, and we do what we do, and they're the foundation of our success. And lately this year, we actually defined our 4th value as we've matured in the company, and that is sustainable. Sustainable is very impactful. It's what we're talking about here, and it's our commitment to today and tomorrow. So the values at Evoqua are what we wake up and we think about every day as we drive to deliver on our vision, all surrounded by our purpose. So, thrilled to be able to talk about it a little bit. Next slide, Julia, please. As you look at this slide, it all is in our name. It's where we started. And people, when I first came to the company, I remember trying to find out what Evoqua was. I went through and Googled it, and I found actually a letter, an announcement when it all became about the name. It's what the company was when we blended 3 ideas to turn it into what we are as a water technologies company. One is to evoke, to recreate imaginatively and change things, evolve, change it into a better or a more advanced state. And finally, it's all around water. It's around aqua, the world's most precious resource. So that's where we became EVOQUA, so evoking, evolving, but also ultimately, transforming water and enriching life. Next slide. This is us at a glance. I can't remember who it was from Arizona. You'll see some of our operations there, but we have more than 100 years of quality and innovation focused on deploying technologies in changing water. We have more than 1,200 patents that we deploy across the company. We operate at 163 offices around the globe, more than 200,000 installations worldwide. We have approximately 4,200 team members, 4,150 that are full-time and about 350 that are temporary on and off. And then last year we did 1.44 billion in revenue. So the company is very broad. It reaches around the globe. We're in 70% of the US water systems in a way, shape, or form. And we deal with the top 20 in the industries that we serve. So if you want to switch to the next slide. This is an example of the industries we serve. So you can see, people think about water, you think about what you drink out of the faucet and what you bathe in every day. But what people don't think about is what water enables. I mean, truly, there is nothing that happens that's not enabled by water, by pure water, and ultimately by what we provide. So whether it's healthcare and pharmaceuticals to deliver on getting us out of this challenge that we're in the COVID, it is manufacturing, microelectronics. People just don't think about what happens. And it takes more than 3,000 gallons of ultra pure water to create enough electricity to light a 60-watt light bulb for a year. And so all of that has to be touched in a way, shape, or form. And we service all of these industries. So out of the industries you see here, we operate with, in general, the top 20 out of each of the industry leaders inside of these areas and these market areas. Next slide. Ultimately, what we're doing is delivering, the solutions to the world's most pressing needs. So whether it's water for use, direct reuse, it is taking out emerging contaminants, or again, it's providing reliable quality and quantity of water for things such as life sciences. One of the things that's been great about the company, and we're seeing it in the sustainability that we drive, is you have to have water to operate. So as an essential service, we have been beneficial and very well benefited that we've not had to go through very large layoffs during a time like this. We continue to operate, we continue to work, and you can tell by the industries that we serve that we are a mission critical need that ultimately, life in the planet just can't sustain without. So if we go to the next slide. Our commitment to sustainability is really where it all lands and ends. I mean, ultimately, as we talk about, we are dealing with the world's most precious resource of water. We're enabling things to happen. We're ensuring that what we are creating is being utilized multiple times, and we are focused on a minimum liquid discharge and minimum impact to the water that we're utilizing, other than putting it back into the environment in a much better way than we took it out. So it's a great company. It's a fantastic purpose. It's a heck of a lot of fun to wake up every day and come to work knowing that you're truly having an impact. And so we're thrilled to be able to, meet with you a little bit via Zoom, whether we can do it in person or not. And hopefully we can all get to more normal times and have more going on in Pittsburgh where we can do it face to face. But, it's a pleasure to be able to introduce Evoqua to you. And now I think I'm turning over to Anthony, right, Julia? Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everybody, or afternoons. Really great to be on the line with you. I too wish we could all be in person, but hopefully those days are soon to come. I want to thank Allison and Pittsburgh Passport and the Allegheny Conference. We've really enjoyed the work that we've done with them. And also Julia for the work that not only she's done on this, but she's done since joining Evoqua. I think a great example of, kind of what we're sharing today and how some of those things can work out really, really well. So as Julia mentioned briefly, I am the CHRO here. March 1st, I just passed 4 years with Evoqua. So I came about 2 years before we became a public company, and I'm originally from West Virginia. So shout out to all those on the line. I think we have a few at least that are from WVU, but have always been very close with Pittsburgh. I've lived around the country and even outside of the country, but have always, since I was a little kid, grown up in and around the Pittsburgh area. So it's really great to be a part of this, and great to be a part of Evoqua. This is a company that I will tell you, we're about a public now for about 2 years, a little more than 2 years, almost 2.5, I guess now. A company that is really an exciting organization to be a part of. When I spent about 15 years prior to joining Evoqua in the pharmaceutical industry. So when I was making a decision to leave the pharmaceutical industry and ultimately to join Evoqua, one of the things that was very important to me was purpose, and really getting behind a company that was doing something important that I could come to and really feel like I was a part of and was contributing to something bigger and touching our communities and the rest of the world. And as I met with Ron through the interview process, really felt that and have seen it play out. And I'll show you some of the ways that I believe that's happened with Evoqua. The other thing I will tell you is we're about a $1.5 billion company. So we are a big company that operates globally, but at the same time, we're the size that you really feel like you can get your arms around and make a contribution. And I think across the team, people would say that that's one of the things that they really appreciate is sort of the entrepreneurial spirit that we have, even as part of a public company, that allows you to really be able to make an impact and sort of see the fruits of your labor. So this slide that everybody's looking at, this was one of the things that we actually did as part of an employee value proposition, an EVP, a couple of years ago as we were getting ready to go public. And one of the things that consistently comes out is the idea that I get to work with really, really smart people that have a passion for what they're doing. And I think that's what you see for sure, one of the standout things that you see about Evoqua. If you can go to the next slide. I mentioned a little bit, that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. When I first joined the company, we were based north of the city, and pretty quickly as a leadership team recognized that, we wanted to make a move downtown. We were in an old inherited office building that really didn't make a lot of sense for us, and knew that being downtown in the center of the city was a place that we wanted to be. And we also knew that we wanted to create an environment that was sort of a work hard, play hard kind of environment. We're going to be surrounded by great team members. Let's work hard. Let's also have a lot of fun with what we do. So in the top right hand corner, you can see the view that we see when we're in our offices. If you're at least on a couple of different sides of the building, overlooking PNC Park a little further to the left of what you see there, and down the river. In the bottom right, you can see the lifestyle center that Ron alluded to earlier. So this is one of the parts, along with a cafe that runs adjacent to this, where people can go. There's a lot of gaming equipment in there. There's cornhole, there's darts, there's all kinds of things like that. Foosball, our general counsel thinks he's the king of all things foosball. So if you join, if you can knock him off, there's probably a little bit of an extra bonus in there we could find for you. But this is a place where we have a lot of fun. We hold a lot of events. We've done a lot of things with customers in here, a lot of things with our community. We've done a lot of charitable work, and we'll hold events in this area. One of the other things I want to mention is being a part of Pittsburgh, and as we continue to get our brand out there, is the work from a social standpoint that we try to do in the community. There are sort of three areas that we try to touch from a charitable standpoint as a company. The first one obviously is around water, things that have to do with water. So things like Water for Nations, that are helping places that aren't as blessed as all of us to be able to get their hands on good, clean, pure water. The second one is to support our veterans. So we're an organization that number one, takes a lot of pride in and has a lot of respect and support for our military and our veterans and what they do for all of us. But also they are an outstanding source of recruiting for us. So particularly in our service technicians, sales organization, but we really have them all over the company. We take a lot of pride in investing in our military and in our veterans. So we do a lot of different things. You can Google us, and we did a military makeover video supporting our veterans. We do a lot of work in the local community for them as well. And then the third one is just our local communities. So getting involved in things like the Pittsburgh Marathon, where we've been lucky enough to have water stations and things like that that align with our mission. So we do a lot of different things wherever we can to try to support our communities and support those sustainability efforts. And the next slide, please, Julia. So then the last slide that I want to talk about more specifically is we pride ourselves on something that we call a high performance culture. And we've really done a lot of work over the last few years to further define that. And what we're looking for are people that are highly enabled, highly empowered, and highly accountable. So if you come to Evoqua, I mentioned earlier about this entrepreneurial spirit. And part of what I believe, and I think our colleagues would reinforce, is that we create this entrepreneurial spirit by giving people the resources they need to be able to get their job done, to empower them to be able to make decisions, to drive hard and feel like they're making a contribution, as I mentioned earlier, and then also to be highly accountable. And obviously there's an element of accountability that is about, getting your job done. But what we're really trying to create as well is you get to do your job. So, as an example, I don't want Ron to be the head of HR. I want to be the head of HR. I want to help shape the direction that we're going, create that agenda, drive that strategy, obviously align more broadly with Ron and the executive team and what we're trying to do as a company. And I think in Evoqua, you have the ability to be accountable and take that ownership for your space. And so if that's the kind of environment that you want to be a part of and feel like you want to own that and really be able to create your own success, that's the type of organization that we're trying to create here. So, you can see at the bottom there, our careers site listed, the link to that. Really encourage you to go on, check us out a little bit more. It's a great company to be in, a great city to be a part of, and we're making an impact around the world. So glad to have you, and hope to see some of you wander in the halls of Evoqua here at some time soon. So I guess, Julia, back to you, or back to Sneh, over to Sneh.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. I think you brought up a great point. Really, when you're part of Evoqua, since we are a recently public company, you can really be a part of building something every single day. We do keep you on your toes, and we do keep things fresh, and it is fun because you are constantly being part of building something. So that is a really fun part of working here, something I really do enjoy. Now we'll move into a conversation that I always love having with our Chief Growth Officer, Snehal Desai, on sustainability in the water space. So, which is the largest user of the world's freshwater supply? All right, and everyone overwhelmingly said agriculture, and drum roll, you would be correct. According to the UN, the global water withdrawal, agriculture uses about 70% of the world's freshwater resources. And then in second place, it would be industry. Y'all know your stuff. This is great to know.
This is an educated crowd.
Yeah, it really is. This is great. Generally, we, doesn't always fall this way. And third is municipal. So that's awesome. So it's ag with 70%, industry with 19%, and municipal with 11%. So it's awesome. I'm glad y'all know your stuff. Municipal is often ranked as the first because that's the, the stuff you see. It's the water you drink and your wastewater at the end. So again, good job, everyone. So again, before I put Sneh in the hot seat, I just want to set the scene. Question that I often ask myself is, why do we work in water? Why should water be a priority? Why do we care about water when there are a lot of other pressing issues and a lot of other topics? So I think, again, y'all already know a decent amount about water, or at least you're really good guessers, but I don't think you are. So a quick stat, because we always have to throw one out at you whenever we talk about water. So according to the UN, more than 2 billion people are living with the risk of reduced access to freshwater resources. And by 2050, at least 1 in 4 people is likely to live in a country affected by chronic or reoccurring shortages of water. And I'm going to push us a little bit further. So I feel like any wicked problem or any interconnected, multi-stakeholder, multifaceted problem is going to have a stat like that they're going to throw at you. And if you're a data-minded person, you're going to say, well, normalize that to some other problem, right? So any problem is going to have stats like that. So let's dive a bit deeper. So for sustainability, an often overwhelming issue is climate change. So climate change is often, again, referred to as that overarching, overwhelming issue that's always on in the back of our minds when we talk about sustainability. So the UN has defined that climate change and water are inextricably connected. And they say, water is the primary medium through which we will feel the effects of climate change. So while, yes, we need to address climate change and we need to work to reduce it, we are already feeling the effects of water. We are of climate change through water, and we are going to continue. It's going to get worse. So we need to build in resilience plans. We need to adapt. We need to mitigate for it, because water is going to be the main medium through which we feel those effects of climate change. So that's why we need to work to address it, because water not only has social impacts, especially around social equity, it also has, of course, environmental impacts too, around water quality and water quantity. But another unseen or underlying one are the economic impacts of water. The World Economic Forum listed the water crisis this year in 2020 in the top 5 global risks that we are and will be facing in the future. Isn't that crazy? So again, water not only has social and environmental risk factors, but also has huge economic factors. And with that, I now want to put Say in the hot seat. Now that we've set the scene and put water as a forefront, why we should care about it, water is a priority. Sneh, can you share more about the water issues that we're facing?
Sure. And thanks all for being online. Before I do that, let me just a snapshot here. I've been with Evoqua about 2.5 years. I've been in the water industry for almost half of my career, which is over 30 years. And actually, first job out of college was in water, and fingers crossed, last job out of college will be water. You know, the area has been compelling for me for many years, and it started out, I'm a chemical engineer by background, went into sales, and the ability to translate technology into need and being able to converse with a wide variety of folks has been sort of at the base of what I've done throughout my career. But that comes out in spades in the water area. And so while this question of what are the issues out there, I mean, go on and on and on, but at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to a few really crucial things. Julia just mentioned, you know, the challenge around climate change, but before we ever started talking about climate change, we were actually talking about infrastructure and how do you get water from where it is to where it needs to be. And honestly, you know, we have every shape and size of infrastructure around the world, all the way from systems that were literally built around the time of the Romans and still using gravity as our friend to get it from where it is to where it needs to be, to some of the most advanced infrastructure to be able to manage what is now an increasing challenge, particularly in the sense that we either have too much water, like storm water, Small side note, I was in Erie a couple weekends ago on a quick trip. It poured. And if you ever really had a question of what happens when you overwhelm a stormwater system, is to watch rivers running down the street because there's nowhere for the water to go. And the challenge with that is that if that is the function of what we see above ground, it is also overwhelming the systems below ground. And when it gets to the wastewater facility, it overwhelms that also. And so those kinds of challenges of too much is on the other side of what we oftentimes talk about is not enough water, which is water scarcity, and the droughts that are facing many of the parts of the US and around the world, as well as just the nature of the pipes and the systems. Lead lines that are being fed into homes, pipes and water that's treated at a central source. Stat here is about 30% of the water that's treated at a municipality is lost in the pipes before it ever gets to our homes. And that means that really we're treating a third more. Either way you cut it, there's efficiencies to be gained, but aging infrastructure is a huge challenge. And it's something that can be addressed with technology. It's something that we do here at Evoqua extremely well. We've actually been a part of that 100-year solution. I will tell you, I would wish I could say we were part of the aqueduct solution. Not going to say that. We're mostly around the systems and disinfection, which is one of the, if you go back in time, one of the single biggest innovations that have happened in the last century was the ability to have microbes in water not be there and make sure that when we drink water, we don't get sick. That's related to disinfection. We're one of the innovators in that space, over 100 years in that space. But even if you go forward from that, technology continues to evolve. It doesn't move very fast in the water industry, but it has large impact. We have to take measure. And then where we are today is not just how we treat and transform water, but how we monitor what's in the water and how it's flowing. And that's really part of the digital revolution that's now arrived in the water area. But it starts with being able to upgrade our infrastructure, knowing what we have, what's in there. And one of the things that's really popped up now is emerging contaminants. Some of you may have heard about PFAS, which is a forever chemical that's starting to show up in our watersheds. But you know, for decades, we've been learning things. As we measure, we learn what's in there. So lead, arsenic, other things. The ability for us to safely take those contaminants out of water is part of the technology suite, but it's how you do that and how you provide that service to a community and how you provide that to, say, a landfill that's trying to, has runoff that they never knew they were going to have. Those are the kind of solutions that we get involved in. Another big issue is climate change, and I just mentioned it, too much or too little. But that's actually manifesting itself, like Julia said very well, which is water ends up being sort of your canary in the coal mine in some places when it comes to the challenges that climate change is starting to, you know, manifest inside our daily lives. And it also speaks to some of the other large users of water. Our ag system is built on that, but we're starting to see tremendous change in the ag sector as well, where they have to deal with not only having too much water and too little water, but it's also fertilizers that are used and how they can actually start to use cleaner systems or reuse their water. So a lot going on there, but climate change is definitely a big one. And then finally, it's really the workforce. We have a relatively aging workforce, and according to some studies that are done by the U.S. Water Alliance and AWWA, it's a rather non-diverse workforce, and it's not necessarily reflective of the communities in which most of us operate in. But it is not just around the age in the population, but there are new skills needed. When I talk about innovation and technology and digital, the work of today's water industry is different than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And we need folks that are coming to the table with a whole set of new skills, but integrated skills to be able to tackle some of these very wicked problems that sit at the core of sustainability. So 4 biggies: infrastructure, contamination, climate change, and then, of course, being able to refresh our workforce in the way that we're working today. I could go on, but I'll stop.
Yeah, and it's just to remain positive, you know, these are issues and the industry is working to solve them, and it's great to be part of the solution. I love that aspect of working here where we see the issues and we're jumping on being part of the solution. We don't just get stuck in the negative aspects. We get to be, have a hand in shaping the future. How fun is that? And Ron mentioned earlier the markets that we work in. I mean, we get to make entire industries be more sustainable in how they use water. That's so exciting. And if you can really geek out to all of that if you want to, but I digress. So Allison, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the next poll question. Great. So if you could take a moment to fill out this one, which do you think is the largest issue facing our water system? Poor water quality or water scarcity? Poor water quality, water scarcity, they're both major issues we need to solve for, right? And luckily at Evoqua, we do have the opportunity to solve for both. It's our responsibility and our opportunity. So, wow, okay. Poor water quality wins out by a bit. All right. So for me, in my opinion, I maybe would have voted for water scarcity. What do you think, Sneh?
Well, it's living in Pittsburgh. I think we have a tendency to think about the quality side of things. Depending on where you are in the country, you probably flip that around, right? But I think the answer that you just said is accurate. It's both. And it is really kind of where you place your emphasis based on need. But, as we talked about all those markets, and it includes municipalities, industrial companies, we're challenged by both as being the things we have to mitigate against. And where technology and service companies like ourselves really can play a role in helping folks solve and navigate that. Because we have only finite resources, so you have to place your investment against where you can have the most impact and address whatever's really your challenge.
And I would say the poor water quality is definitely an answer in North America versus a global answer probably, which would be more scarcity.
Yeah, agreed. This is probably a very regional answer too. Folks in on the call in Arizona would probably answer differently from our folks on the call in Pittsburgh.
Yep. Good.
All right, thank you for that. Oops, pardon. All right, Sneh, back on the hot seat. So, pardon. So why do companies care about water? We've jumped a little bit around. We've talked about ag, we've talked about communities a little bit, but why do companies care about water? Why should they?
Well, it's a good question. And actually from an Evoqua standpoint, it's a perspective that we feel we have the ability to speak to simply because it's a big part of our business. More than 60-70% of our company's revenues are focused on the industrial space across those verticals. So we have an insight into what's really driving the behavior when our customers are coming to us and we're going to them trying to solve problems. So the first question is why do they care about water? Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, we hit it a little bit with the importance of water in making our food systems work. And what I mean by that is food and beverage facilities need water on the front end to be able to deliver power to their site, to process and clean the food as it goes through the facility. And ultimately, it would be needed it turns into a waste stream, and you have to treat what comes out before you pass it on through. But I mean, we're very involved in the power industry. You need water for steam, you need water, then you actually need to clean that water on the back end, not to mention the chemical and petrochemical industry and healthcare and education. I mean, really everywhere you look, water is a central theme. So if you don't have enough, then you are unable to do what your mission is as a company. And that becomes an issue of risk and reliability. If you can't do your job, because the boilers aren't working, or that you can't clean the products, or you can't even process, say, chips that go into an iPhone, that becomes a major issue. And it's much bigger than the cost of water. It's the economic impact that you have as an organization. The other reason that people are focusing on water is on this subject of whether they have enough or the quality, is that you have to be able to ensure that when we look at the different users and we said ag is number one and industry is number two, and then finally we have municipalities, but the first group that usually gets hit if there is an issue around quantity, meaning we can't get enough water from the aquifer or from the local system to be able to supply everyone, the first group that usually gets hit is industry. Because it's in an order of need thought to be the one that maybe we could do without the most, which I would argue maybe not so much, but suffice it to say, people need to drink water and we need to grow stuff. So we're all on it. But that's why companies are really trying to build in some resilience into their systems. And the reason that they think about this is they start to say, okay, I have X number of gallons of water to be able to do what I need to do. But why should I bring that water in the front of my plant and then let it just go in the back when I treat it from a wastewater perspective? Why not reuse it? So if those of you that are familiar with the principles of, I'll call it the environmental principles, it typically says you should reuse, then recycle, and then particularly possibly renew. And the water industry is a little bit different. You first start by saying, how do I reduce my use? How do I reduce, be efficient, right? And that's what all good companies do. We help companies do that by really helping them understand their water footprint, help them understand where they're using water and where could they be using water better. Secondly, you have the opportunity to reuse. And recycle and reuse, sometimes they go hand in hand. But the reality is that the quality of water as it goes through a facility with little treatment can be improved and recycled back to the front end. And therefore, you're getting more productivity out of every drop that's coming through the facility. And there you have to really spend time understanding the flows of how water goes through a plant, and then how you can best reroute it to be efficient. And then that reuse is really taking, if you let the water go all the way through the factory, oftentimes industrial companies have to treat that water to a quality that's better than maybe what they brought in the front of the plant, because of the regulations and whatnot that they have to comply with. But once you've taken it that far, why would you let it go, right? Why would you let the drop go? It has so much more work it can do. And the water molecule is awfully resilient. So if you can bring it back around on the front end, you as an industrial company have a chance not only to hit your sustainability goals, not only to make sure that you have some reliability insurance built in, but think about it, it's almost water independence, right? You have to find a way to kind of, if you can as an industrial company, you think about, how do I mitigate risk? One way to try to mitigate risk is try to kind of self-contain yourself so you can do the work that's important, but you're also not putting stress on an already taxed system. So those things that customers go through, we have several customers that we're helping enable with reuse systems, and particularly in the industrial space. What's really cool now is that we think about water and water reuse. But the other thing that's starting to arise is that there is the liquid part of waste and there's a solid part of waste. And I'm just gonna let your imagination be what it is. But in the solid part of waste, there is a lot of carbon. There is organic material. And if you think about what petroleum and energy comes from, is nothing more than, millennia of compression of organic matter. But we can short cycle that by taking the solid waste out of a municipality or a food facility, for example, and we can actually feed that to bugs through what we call anaerobic digestion. And I see some of the backgrounds that we have online here. And that allows you to generate not only a cleaner stream, because there's still water that comes off, but you create natural gas, renewable natural gas, biogas. And we have a division that we bought a few years ago called ADI Systems, and their product, and we're integrating that into dairies and potato processors and grain processors, and ultimately, a lot of our farms and a lot of our livestock and a lot of our protein comes from facilities where they historically were able to take the waste from the facility and land apply it. But now you capture it, you generate energy. But again, it's a great opportunity to close the loop. And a circular economy is another term we use, but it's one of the things that we're enabling across a number of sectors by treating the water in the front end, helping customers deal with what happens on the back end, and now starting to even tap into the energy potential of what sits inside our waste system. And companies care about this stuff because they know they can do something about it, but they have a lot of levers to pull. But it's complicated, and that's what we help customers navigate, is that complicated landscape of where they can invest and make a big impact. So
Right.
that's a long answer to a really exciting problem, and it goes deeper when you get into each of the different verticals because everybody's got a different challenge.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sneh. Yeah, corporations, companies, industry has a really unique opportunity to really make a difference in this space because, like we saw, they're the second biggest user after agriculture, right, to in the world's water use. So with that, let's cut to the third polling question. All right, I'm gonna end polling there so we can keep on moving. All right, great. We also have a lot of folks really passionate about water. Love it. That's very exciting. We are also very much aligned with this Sustainable Development Goal too. These are some of the, I'm just going to see if I can pull them up. So these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals over here, if you can see them. So Sneh, what are some of the other ones that we align with at Evoqua?
Yeah, so besides the usual suspect number 6, we also align to number 3, which is health and well-being. We have quite a footprint in the healthcare industry, the pharma industry. We're enabling, as Ron mentioned at the front end, quite a bit of what's going on today with COVID, being able to make sure the testing facilities have the water they need to make the instruments run, to be able to do the analytics. So number 3 is definitely in our scope. Number 7 is in our scope as well. And, you know, really there, I mentioned some of the biogas and the kind of work we're doing there, but we're also helping our overall power grid and our transition to different fuels by the work that we do with various companies. That we said we work with probably the top 20 companies in each of the verticals. So really helping enable them as companies. Number 9, and that's just a broad one for us, but you know, industrial companies, innovation, recycling, a lot of that fits under that. And then of course, infrastructure to be able to support all that. Number 12 is also a space that we're pretty close to. And that little symbol there is that circular economy concept of being able to really get more from everything we do and ensure that we don't waste an opportunity. And then of course, climate action, which is number 13. So it's the usual suspect is around number 6. But I think given what I described earlier and our impact and involvement with industry, as well as municipalities, we really touch a lot of what the UN has laid out as the roadmap for sustainable development.
Yeah, I think, Sneh, we also have launched with what you talked about with the business we bought into number 7 pretty heavily. That's coming as well.
Yes, yes.
Talking about biogas.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Great.
good. And, you know, maybe pivoting off of this question, you know, and we talked about it as the name of our session here today is around sustainability. You know, we have been on a journey, and I think anybody that's around sustainability will hear that term journey, but it is that of being able to sharpen our efforts in this space. Because look, at the beginning, it started out with being a water company says you're sustainable, but in principle, that's not always enough, but it's also to help people understand what does that really mean. And so we started, and Julia has been part of the architecture for what we're doing around sustainability. Last summer, we conducted a materiality assessment through our internship program. We used that information along with some outside consultants to help us really understand what are the levers that we as Evoqua can pull when it comes to impacting sustainability around a lot of the different SDGs that were mentioned here on the previous slide. And what that really led to was us framing up a really broad base of how we think we play in the sustainability space. Number 1, it starts with our handprint. And I would say that's number 1 because that's where we started from. We said, we're a water treatment company. We transform water and enrich life. And so what does that really mean? It's around how our solutions enable our customers. It helps them become more sustainable, whether they be around meeting their sustainability goals around water use, water efficiency. In some cases, it could be around energy efficiency, but there's a lot that is going on with what we deliver as solutions, and not only what we deliver, but how we deliver it. We're doing quite a bit around digital water and smart water systems to be able to, again, drive more efficiency for our customers, help them understand their footprints, help them understand where their opportunities lie. And so a fair number of things that we do when we talk about the company relate to our handprint and how we affect the downstream markets. But the other major pillar of our sustainability strategy is our footprint. And so that's a lot around how we operate as a company. We have facilities around the world, and manufacturing operations, offices. We have a fleet of cars and trucks. You know, how do we manage our footprint as well as we can, and also understand which of those things that we can control are things that we're going to make commitments to improve. So in our sustainability report, we've talked about our water usage at sites and electricity usage at sites. We're just putting baselines in place because, as you can imagine, measuring and monitoring is in of itself a full-time job. And we have started to put some resources in place to be able to do that. But those two big elements, handprint and footprint, is how we're seeing the world. And it's really a balance between those, because you can't do too much of one and not enough of the other, but you have to make sure you're actually putting your efforts forward in a way that they're going to drive an overall profile of both us as a company, as well as helping our stakeholders, be it our customers, our employees. We have a lot of employees that have come to Evoqua and stayed at Evoqua, and in some cases returned to Evoqua because of what we do as a company, and not only what we do, but how we do it. And then we also have investors, right? There are investors out there that are seeking to invest in companies that have this kind of profile and make this kind of impact. And so we're really kind of at the, I'd say at the beginning stages of our sustainability strategy, but it's extremely exciting. It's very resonant right now. It's easier to have a conversation around sustainability today than it might have been about 5 years ago. But it's also what's attracting folks to our story, including hopefully many of you on this call, because it's great to be a part of the change and having a toolbox and teammates that are really up to the challenge. And I think in the 2.5 years I've been here, that's been nothing but the case of being able to continue to build and grow to the challenge. So that's quite a bit. I know we have a little bit of time left. Last 2 pitches, I'll put it inside the notes. If you want to, follow me on LinkedIn, but we put a couple of articles out about sustainability. Follow the Evoqua hashtags and follow us on pretty much LinkedIn. That's where the good stuff is. Twitter, that's where reference to the good stuff is. Probably not on Facebook. That's not where most of the good stuff is. But we are actually broadening our footprint on social as well. And with that, I'm done.
Great. Well, thank you so much to Sneh and Julia and Anthony and Ron for sharing with us today. Hopefully people are walking away with some more information, some new information, some ways to engage. I do want to plug a couple of upcoming events. Tomorrow we have How to Nurture Your Innovative Mindset with Ernst & Young. It's not only a session about, how to engage with their company and what they're doing from an innovative perspective internally, but also just how to continue to grow in your personal and professional life. We have Highmark is hosting a trivia night. You can find out about opportunities from their university relations team and also have a chance to win some prizes. Then we have a What's Next grad school and job search strategies with Carnegie Mellon and Pitt. That's broad. It's not just about going to school there potentially, but really hearing from employers firsthand about what they're looking for from talent. We have a fantastic opportunity. Astrobotic, if you're not familiar, is a space company that is going to bring Pittsburgh to the moon with payloads. They are hiring because they just got a $300 million contract with NASA. And so there's an opportunity to touch base with HR and find out about opportunities there. And then lastly, What the Heck is CTF, which is Capture the Flag. If you are interested in learning about ethical hacking, whether you're a beginner or you're more experienced, they'll have a little bit of something for everyone. So I encourage you to sign up at pittsburghpassport.com for any of those. As always, stay well, be kind, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.